You can.
You can. Just go ahead and choose 2. Choose 2. And then would you do 3?
Yeah, I love 3.
Perfect. All right. So we'll first start by saying welcome and thank you for coming to the Move Up Lunch for Rising Second Grade Parents. I am Marvella Taylor and I teach second grade here at Green Bay and this is my 10th year. I'm in the same classroom in the same grade. I also am mom to Ayana, who is a current 3rd grader here at GDS, and host mom to Doris, who is in the 10th grade here at GDS. She is a student from China. And so prior to hosting her, I hosted a student who attended GDS her freshman to sophomore, a senior year. She just graduated in June. And her name was Bilal, and she was from South Africa. So I've enjoyed GDS as an employee, as a parent, and as the opportunity to serve as a host parent.
I'm Linda Sigmund. This is my first year at GDS. Previously, as I was saying before, I was from Maine, and we lived in Maine. I taught there for 15 years between 1st and 2nd grade in southern Maine. We moved to the Greensboro area. It'll be 2 years in July. Interesting way I met the people at GDS. I had been in Maine and was attending the Teachers College Writers Program, Readers Workshop Program over the summer, just before we moved. I really wanted to go to it, even though I was leaving my old job because of the training that it would provide. And at there, when you're doing meetings with people, they had said, so where are you from? And I was like, today I'm from Maine, and tomorrow I will be from North Carolina, because my husband was closing on the house. And then the group I was in met some other people from North Carolina, and it happened to be the group from GDS who were also at the conference. And they texted me and we hooked up for lunch, and then I actually moved into the neighborhood that Marie McKay is also in, and then subbed here last year, and it worked out really well that I met them there, and it was just interesting how that all happened. I have 3 children, adult children, and the oldest one, Rachel, and her husband have 2 little boys, so I have 2 little grandchildren who are pretty much. And we moved to North Carolina to be closer to family, and the weather is much nicer.
So we, each of you have a card. We're going to play a version of Wheel of Fortune. There's no wheel, but each of you have a card, and on that card will be a letter. And so we're going to just ask who has the letter S, and you say, I do.
I do.
Okay, and so each letter represents something unique to second grade. And so we'll talk a little bit about those parts. Okay, so we have S, and when is up for S?
Okay, so S is service learning. So around Thanksgiving, rather than do a feast like they have in first grade and kindergarten, maybe, we do a service learning project. So as a group, both second grades make a meal start to finish for the firefighters down the road, and then we have parents come in and we have the recipes and the kids make the food, and then we walk it down and bring it down to them. And it's part of it's being close to the community, and also helping others out and not having it be about us, but to bring in the service learning and be about other people and helping them.
Who has E?
I do.
E is for economics. So economics is one of our units in social studies. And during that unit, students are learning some basic terms in regards to economics. So a good versus a service, a producer, consumer, a wage, some other terms I'm trying to think of. Supply and demand. And so they're learning these terms through learning activities. There's some educational videos that they enjoy that introduces this concept at a second grade level. And then from there, we do have students work to apply for a job. And when they apply for their job, they're applying to be a service producer, and they're going to be producing a good. And that good then is produced among several days, and they're earning a wage, and they're aware of how much income, how much you can earn for your day's work. We talk about the importance of doing your part and showing up on time. And so at the end of the week, the students are issued a check, and it's paid to them for the amount that they earn for the week. And then they cash their check at the bank, which is in the classroom. The teacher serves as the banker. And they are then given cash to keep in an envelope, which serves as their wallet. And so that wallet is where they're encouraged to keep safe somewhere, because once you earn your money, you want to keep it safe. And so then they do a big shop day, where they do get to experience what it's like to shop as a consumer, and to be thinking about supply and demand, and making some choices on how you're going to spend your money. That has been a really fun experience for students, because it's real life, and they really do enjoy the producing of the goods, and they come up with some really creative ideas. I did rock pets one year, and at the end there were some phenomenal rock pets that students were able to create, and just from their imagination, or even if they looked it up online and saw some ideas, and they were inspired by some of the ideas online that they found. But it's been a proven learning experience for our second graders, that I think if they were on to 4th or 5th grade, could still talk about that experience.
Or ninth grade.
Or 9th grade, as Franny is now in 9th grade. So it's definitely one to experience to remember in 2nd grade. All right, who has C?
So C is for community, and we start the year with the kids and really focus on our classroom community, and making that a caring, welcoming, safe place for all learners, for all of us. And then we take that, and we do that for a while, and create that environment through a lot of activities and projects that we do. And then we also, the community of Greensboro, and we look at the suburban, urban, and rural types of communities, and the Greensboro area offers all of those aspects, which is nice. We go to the Greensboro Historical Museum, and then they go back in time, and the kids have as a field trip, and they have different setups that they experience there. We also then come back, and they research more about a specific community, and then we do a gingerbread community at in December, where one group has to come up with their urban community, the suburban and rural, and they make a plan, and then they have to compromise and decide how they're going to fit all the aspects of their designs into one area, because they only have one space that's so big. Then they're creating using different cardboard or milk cartons or plastic recycled kind of materials, and we decorate those, and they make, it's a gingerbread in that it's wrapped with paper, and then they do decorate it with little candies after, but it's really not gingerbread. But then they have all of the different parts, and what is in an urban community, how can we represent that, how close are my houses going to be, where's the library, and it takes a lot of give and take on their part to create that, and then it's in the hall for the kids walking by to see and touch.
Try.
So that's the community part of it.
Who has O? Okay. O. So O is for our kindergarten buddies, reading buddies. So one of the highlights of being a second grader is that you have a kindergarten reading buddy. My class is paired up with Ms. Sykes' kindergarten class, and Ms. Siffman's class is paired up with Ms. Rogers' kindergarten class. And so second graders remember when they were kindergarten buddies and that experience. And when they're in second grade, they feel honored to then serve as the role as the big kid. And so we meet with our kindergarten buddies several times throughout the year. We read with our kindergarten buddies. We meet with our kindergarten buddies to do some academic work. For instance, the kindergartners are doing a study on animal habitats. And so they were meeting with their reading buddies, and the reading buddies did some reading to them. The second graders did some reading to them from a text. And then that kindergarten had to share what was that interesting fact that they wanted to include in their project about that animal. The second graders in helping with them writing that fact, or the kindergartners dictating it in some instances where the second graders are writing it. But a lot of times we're encouraging them to just provide a support, to be a support person and helping them write those things. We do some things around the holiday time for things like Valentine's. The kindergartners would make something for our kindergarten buddies, and our second graders and our second graders would then make something for our kindergarten buddies. So we go out and we play games together, or we might do some indoor games together. So we try to connect with them a few times throughout the school year. They would love to do more, and our hope is always to encourage and get more of that connection between the kindergartners and second graders. And so they've enjoyed it, and they look forward to it in second grade. Okay, who has N? N, all right.
Okay. So the N is a little bit of a reach. But it's numbers with Miss Brennan. So for math in second grade, it's a little different than first grade. Miss Brennan is the math specialist at school, and once a week she comes into each of our classrooms, one day my room and one day Miss Taylor's room, and works a whole group with the students, and we do more problem solving than the kids are used to in the first grade. In first grade they have the Trailblazers book that they work from, and they work on solidifying a lot of their number sense and math skills, and then in second grade it's taken a little bit further. It's interesting to come into it this year, and I had been in first grade with some of the kids last year in Ms. Stahl's class, and knew them as math students then, and then when they come into second grade, it's a little more challenging for them in that there are problems that they're not used to having us to struggle with. And it's not that we're making it hard, they're just not, it's a different way of thinking for them. They have to use a different part of their math brain. And Ms. Brennan puts it as a terrific struggle, that, yep, it's gonna be a little hard, but we're gonna do it. And we work through it, and it's, at this point in the year, and to have seen kids early in the year with it, and it was like, oh, this is really, they're a little uncomfortable because they haven't been out of their comfort zone with it before. And then to watch them now, it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. I have strategies that I can use to do this. So we do different problem solving. Right now we're doing grouping, which is the beginning of multiplication. And partitioning will be next. But it's done in a friendly way and with manipulatives and support. And it's also really differentiated that we start slower, but there's something as a reach for kids who are ready for that. And then once a week, kids who either need support or need enrichment or are learning a game will also go and spend about 45 minutes with Miss Brennan and up in her math lab. And that varies. It's not the same kids all the time. Some of the kids say it is, but it's really not. But they get to go up there too. And then we follow in with the curriculum in the classroom as well.
All right, who has D? All right, D. D was also a stretch. D is doing research for Genius Hour. And so as first graders, they may already are doing some Genius Hour in both first grade classrooms. But Genius Hour is a time that students are exploring topics of interest to them. They are taking the wheel. And with some support, they are learning about what do you already know about this topic and what do you want to know about this topic. So getting to think about, is there some learning that's going to happen here when you're choosing this topic? I'll give an example of a topic that just came out recently. I had a new student start after the winter break. Her family was moved here from Brazil. And so a student had just finished up her Genius Hour project on another topic. And because we have this new student in Brazil, I think that sparked interest. What is this Brazil and what is it like there? So she's now studying Brazil. And she's using her resources to gather information about Brazil, but she's also using the student who's just moved here from Brazil, has lived there, to get some information from her about what people do in Brazil. What do you eat in Brazil? What's school like in Brazil? So that was a real connection for that student who's studying a topic and has someone they can interview. But the students are searching topics from like Brazil to Bruno Mars and everything in between. And so it's so much fun, and they have to gather their information. They have to choose how they're going to present that information. They have to stand in front of their peers and present their information. And in my class, I do a 3-2-1. What are 3 things we learned from this student's presentation? What are 2 things you wonder? And it doesn't mean the student has to answer right then. It just might spark some further research down the line. And then give that student 1 compliment on their work. So we do a 3-2-1. And so that has something we do every Friday. It's in the morning, and so it's an easy way to end our week and something that they enjoy and are taking ownership of.
The next, G. Okay. So G is the grasshopper game. The baseball in the spring, we go to as part of the community, because we are fortunate enough to have the Greensboro Grasshoppers in our community. We go to the game as an end of the year, mid-May, end of the year, field trip. And parents are invited to come, and the kids.
And highly encouraged to come.
And we go as a group to the game, and you're going to have to help me a little bit more about because I haven't gone there.
Yeah, so this will be Linda's first time at the Grasshopper game. It will be my 10th time going to the with students. But it is the most anticipated field trip of the whole school year for 2nd grade. And so all parents are highly encouraged to attend. It keeps student-parent ratio really low, as we're out the ballpark. We do go to a day game. It used to be a 12 noon game, but this year it's going to be like an 11 a.m. game. So it's not very crowded. It's a very easy get in and out kind of game. We will sit all on Lawn Hill, the State Farm Hill, which is right in front of the playground. And so it's just a day to enjoy the game, and we've always had great weather. I don't think we've ever had to cancel a game due to bad weather. So the weather's always been nice. Sometimes it's been really hot, but you can't, we do have students are each given $6 in babe bucks. I almost said bingo bucks because I get them mixed up because we have bingo bucks at our bookstore, but babe bucks at the Grasshopper. So they get $6 in babe bucks, and then they're purchasing a lunch with that babe bucks. Then they can bring up to $5 more to buy something extra like Dippin' Dots or cotton candy. But we do talk about the importance of purchasing a lunch and then using your extra funds that your parents give you to buy yourself a treat. And so it's a big deal. And then they do ask our 2nd graders, the part when they might ask them, can we get a couple of your students to come down to the field and do one of the games that they do at the end of the innings and things. So that's a bit fun. Last year for the first year, and hopefully we'll get to do it again this year, but last year Jill Hare, the music teacher, arranged for our students to sing the Star Spangled Banner at the ballpark. And so that was a lot of fun. It was the first time 2nd graders had to do that. So hopefully that will be part of our traditional trip. Who has R?
Right here. Trying to solve the puzzle.
So R is rainforest. This is a unit of study that we do towards the end of the school year, in the springtime, and that is when they're learning about animals that live in the rainforest and the layers of the rainforest and what that habitat is like. So each student is given they have an option of which animal they want to study, and they're learning about that animal's habitat, its appearance, what it eats, interesting facts, adaptations, which is a tricky one for students to understand, but we try to bring it to understand that it is how that animal is made to survive in its habitat. And so they're reading text and they're pulling out this information, and they have a graphic organizer to kind of organize their notes in terms of food and appearance and interesting facts and adaptations. And then they create a project in which they make a little puppet, which is really cute, and they are using their art skills to illustrate that animal, and then they're doing a written report about that animal. And then again, they're having an opportunity to present and share with their their peers about what they learned. And they'll do some learning activities in the science lab with Ms. Cook around the rainforest. They do some talking about how the rainforest how is it similar to some of our forest areas here in North Carolina? How is it different? And so there's some compare and contrast there with that. But it's another fun unit, and the rainforest, we now have a student from Brazil. I did ask her if she'd been to the rainforest, she had not. So, so then we'll talk about the largest rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, and again some more learning videos around that too that they'll get to watch and discuss. All right, who is A?
So A is for acts of kindness. After the holidays, January, time to come back together and think about how, usually to remind everyone about being in a classroom and a community and revisit from the beginning of the year, and to do acts of kindness, random acts. How can we be nice? How can we be kind to each other? We've each started in our room a random acts of kindness board where when somebody does something kind for someone, they can write it on the little shape, and then it goes up on the board, and encouraging people to be kind and nice to each other. It also ties in great with Martin Luther King Jr. and the reading and work that we do with him and how he made our world a better place. Yesterday we brought in another book that we read to go with it too, was with Jackie Robinson, and just to have the kids think about the world as it is, that as they know it, and how it was different, but people being kind and nice and brave and helpful, that really makes a difference, and that we strive to be kind and nice to people.
And who has D?
Let's get to D.
Okay. D is for design engineering, which is one of my favorite parts of second grade. We have 2 engineering units in second grade. The first one, the one year when we first got the kit, it was a design windmills. And students are learning about the engineering design process, how you first ask, and then you imagine, then you plan, you create, and you improve. I think I got them all. And so we go through that whole engineering design process, and they're working as mechanical engineers during that unit. And they're working to design windmill blades to catch the wind to do work, which is to lift weight, which is these little washers. They work in pairs doing that, so there's some bringing of ideas together and compromising and working on a plan to accomplish the goal, which is to design a blade that can catch the wind. That has been a huge success in second grade. You'll hear shouting and screaming and hurrah and go, 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 because there's a sailboat part of it too first, where they're trying to get their sails to go across the track, and then we move to the windmill blade. So there's a lot of excitement around that. Then we were so excited about the engineering unit, we looked in to see what other units does this EIE, engineering is elementary curriculum, have for second grade, and then they had one with plants, and we do study plants in second grade. And this one we just are wrapping up right now is plant packaging engineers. Well, there's packaging engineers as a job, but they are working as plant packaging engineers. And one of the things that they were challenged to do is create a plant package, a package for this plant, and it has to meet the needs of the plant. So we review what are the needs of a plant, and then it has to meet the needs of a consumer, and what is a consumer, and what will be the needs of that consumer. And so they work in teams of 3, which required 3 ideas come together to form one, which was interesting to see and help support. And they just recently designed their packages, and they know about the functions of packages. We know that packages need to contain, they need to preserve, they need to protect. Some packages may have a dispense feature. So they can name those functions and look at something and say, tell me the function of this package. And so they're learning about packaging engineering and mechanical engineering in second grade. A lot of hands-on problem solving, and we encourage them to do that, use that problem solving, design engineering thinking throughout the school year. If there's a problem, we often talk about how we can start with the ask, what do we want to know, and imagine how we might begin to solve that problem and create a plan. And so it's very much applicable outside of science, and so it's been a great experience teaching students.
last one is, okay. So exploring plants. We start the year in science with a plant unit, and the life cycle of a plant, the different parts of a plant, and we look at them and we do different experiments based on if it's the seed and what it does, and with roots. When we were doing the stem, we took celery and you put it in water, and they are just, within an hour in colored water, it turned colors, and they were like, they were so excited. And then we planted beans and watched them grow, and you put them in different environments to see how, comparing, so the needs of a plant and how it changes, how it grows. They would come in the morning, very excited to see that the beans growing, and then how tall they got. And then we were fortunate enough, because we're on the sunny side of the building in the fall, that actually went through the whole cycle, and it had the blossoms, and then the little beans were growing, and they're like, can we eat them? I think they're really not that big, but we can cut them into teeny tiny bits for you. But they were very excited with that. And with the plants also, it connects up to the science lab, and Miss Cook's work with them, and then in the garden and things they do there. We were fortunate enough to do, she had a lot of seeds that we could look at, and then the different sizes and shapes, and comparing and contrasting and learning about plants. And then it went nicely into the engineering of the plant package, because we had been working with the plants and growing them and learning about them. And then we were able to design a package for some plants to be transported to.
And some grew more successfully than others, because ours did not do well. And I talked about how yours was doing, and we talked about why might that be, and my windows doesn't seem to get as much sun as yours, I think.
Right.
So we weren't as successful, but it was a learning experience nonetheless. And but it did tie nicely into the plant engineering unit. And one of the things about the engineering unit that I did not mention, they each come with a story. The story is usually set in another country. A little boy in Jordan, his sister's getting married, and they want to give her a plant, but the sister's going to be moving. So it presents the story problem there, and how there's this plant that needs to be transported because the sister's moving away after she gets married. And then he and his little sister begin thinking about how to problem solve for that. And then, so that's how the students are introduced into the unit. And the story is also, there's another story that goes with the windmill unit too. That it's kind of like that hook to students and get them thinking about the problem in the story and how they can be part of the problem solving process.
So
And
that's,
so the puzzle is second grade.
Is that what you thought?
It's pretty short.
So this, now we'll take any questions you might have regarding what we shared, or anything that we maybe did not touch on that you would like to know.
I have three questions,
Okay.
and in no particular order. In the engineering module, how are the kids divided? How are they grouped?
How are they grouped? That's a good question.
Do they get to group themselves? Do you group them?
They won't get to pick their own groups. I put some thought into their work styles that I've observed up until that point. We do want to mix, girls and boys working together, and so it's a combination of work styles and boy-girl balance. And usually it works out well. I haven't had to make any changes. But yesterday I was just working with a team, and there's one that's very quiet, and she was not speaking up, and the other two were a little more opinionated. And so it took me to say, well, what do you think, to the quiet one? And then she spoke. And so sometimes you just got to come in and see that his voice is maybe not being heard because they're a little quieter. But or I might say to a student, have you heard so-and-so speak? Let's encourage them to share their idea. What could you say to engage them? And so that has worked out in terms of helping students all have a say in voicing their opinions and their ideas.
The second question, I guess, is can you speak to the use of technology in the general curriculum?
Yes. You want me to
So-
take that one, or you want to take it?
I'll start, and then you
Okay.
can add on. And each student has an iPad in second grade. In our classroom, we use them at times during reading time or sometimes during math time. On Fridays, they're used a lot during when they do Genius Hour. There are books that they can access at their level on the iPad so that can do their research there, and then they can use them also to create their presentation. They might do a pic collage, they might do a book, two popular things on them. Also, we have the program Seesaw, the app, where we're using it a lot as a digital portfolio, where work that children do is on the Seesaw app, and so then it's sent out and parents can see it. It's shared, and then you have access to it also. They go to the computer lab once a week with Mrs. McLaughlin and work up there in the technology lab also.
Yes, I'm more interested in how the overuse of technology versus
The underuse.
The average use of.
No, I'm trying to get a sense of how much, how much time they spend using.
How much screen time they're,
Yeah. that's
okay,
exactly.
okay. So in our room, we use it the most on Fridays for Genius Hour, and then it's depending on if we can use it to practice our math facts sometimes. If they are independent reading, once in a while they'll be able to use Epic and read the books from there. If it's an indoor recess time like today, if it's one recess that I know we're going to be in, then usually I'll just say it's not an iPad time. But if it's going to be both, then we are going to pick one that's an iPad time. And they're like, well, what happens if I don't use it? I was like, no, it's either you use it at the morning recess or it's not. So that they're using it, but also interacting with their peers also.
I think you might have already inadvertently answered my third question, but the level of reading literacy that's expected at the start of second grade, what sort of?
We do Reader's Workshop, the Reader's Workshop model, with our own twist to it. Reader's Workshop is 4 days a week. The fifth day, Friday, when it's Genius Hour, there's reading, writing, and everything's kind of combined that day. We start out somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour of Reader's Workshop, where there's a mini lesson, and then the kids are going off to apply what we've been working on in their reading, and then come back and share with their partner some of the knowledge that the skills that they've been working on.
And it is, the students, it's self-selected, so students are selecting the books that they are choosing to read during their independent reading time. And so they have a book basket that they're either shopping for books from the classroom library, or they're shopping for books from the resource center. And they could also be even books that they brought from home that they're reading, or even checked out from the lower school library. So it is all self-selected. Students are learning how to choose a just right book, and they know the 5-finger rule, and how to go about choosing a book that's a good fit for them. And so when they are doing their independent reading, they're off to read, and then the classroom teacher and assistant teacher also is involved in this, is either doing a running record with students to check how their fluency, how are they doing with applying the skills that we have been learning up until that point, or what our focus is on at that point. We might do a small group of reading where we might be having a small group of students in front of us, each reading the same text, and doing some discussions about that text, so it could look different.
So it might be helpful for parents to hear, because I know, first grade is that year where reading is starting to solidify a little bit, and kids are at different ranges. Maybe you all could speak to the range that you typically see in second grade of readers. Is that something?
As far as their
Like
reading
levels?
The levels?
Yeah, or reading ability. Is that something that I know it changes.
It
from year to
changes
year.
from year to year,
Yeah.
but I would say we have still a late first grade reader to, I say late third grade reader, and in between.
So we try to have enough books in the library that meet the ranges, and that they can go to the library and select books that are just right for them. And if we don't have them, then Suzanne Billups, the reading specialist in the resource room, she has lots of books where the children can go up and get books there too.
So, excuse me, so what's a late first grade reader?
What does that look like?
What does that look like? They're probably still, decoding skills are still being strengthened, sounding out words. It's difficult to answer. I'm trying to think
I
of.
realize I have no idea how
Yeah.
to read. Well, I think, and then I quit. I have no idea what happened.
Typically, their fluency, they're working to strengthen their fluency, their ability to decode words when they get to a word that's tricky. We have a unit or a lesson that is on when words are tricky. Roll up your sleeves. That's like the name of the lesson. And what are the strategies that you can use to solve that tricky word? So we have some students who are still strengthening their decoding skills and how to use all of these strategies. Is a word inside of the bigger word that you know? What is the beginning sound? What is the end sound? What makes sense if you skipped over that word? So lots of what they would have heard in first grade, but they're hearing it again in second grade. And so I will also say an first grade reader is probably still learning some things like, well, what do you know? Like, or stopping, what do you predict is going to be happening next? I think all readers, we're asking them to do that, but I think those are some of the skills that we want to see students have solid so that when they're moving up in their reading ability, that they're able to still project, they're able to still make inferences, they can answer comprehension questions that go beyond who was in the story and where it took place, but some higher level thinking questions like the why and the how do you know kind of questions, or some questions that just provide them, what do you think the author is trying to tell you in this story? What was the most important thing that happened in the story, and why do you think it's important? So just giving a reason for their opinion and supporting it. So that's what we're asking of all readers, no matter what level they're at. But we do want to see them reading at a level that's a comfortable fit for them, and then applying those same skills, whether they're reading at a beginning or in the first grade level or at the end of a third grade level. And in between, there are going to be some stretches and things of that sort. But if I'm reading A and you're reading Z, my teacher's still going to require me to, what questions came to mind as I was reading? And she's going to ask the same of you, what questions came to mind when you were reading? So that might be the mini lesson, asking questions while you read. And so I'll do a mini lesson on that. Now everyone's off to read what's in your book basket, and then you're using Post-it notes to maybe indicate what's that question that came to mind as you were reading. And that's, all students are able to do that. I hope that answered your question.
I think so.
Okay.
And do y'all continue along with the reading folders like they're bringing home this year in first grade? Or is it
No.
all done during class?
If I remember correctly, you were talking about when they bring books home to read.
Yes.
And we don't do that here, do that in second grade. They are welcome to take a book from the classroom and take it home to read for their reading time at home. That's always an option. But we don't formally have students put books in a bag to take home each week.
But like Marvella said, if they wanted to take books, they could.
Right.
And there is the expectation that they do read 4 out of the 5 nights during the week.
Yeah, 20 minutes on
I'm good with that. My daughter loves it, so that's why I'm hoping she can still.
No, and if
finish
you,
it.
yeah, absolutely.
We do, I've had parents ask for that, but know that it is an option for students to take books home. It's not a designated time that we're having students choose books to take home, but they have access to books readily available to them to take home.
And then in second grade, they go to the library and they can check out.
They go to the library and they check out books. A lot of times, the books that they may be checking out in the library may be a book that may be beyond where they are as a reader, and it's a good opportunity for parents to read to them or read along with them. But in the classroom, when they're doing their book shopping or in the reading resource center, we are wanting them to definitely be able to choose books that are going to be a good fit for them, because we want them to be able to read it independently during that independent reading time.
Yeah,
done this, but I've already forgotten. And then there was a transition in spelling tests from first to second. Remind me what your, or if you focus on something each week less. Remind me, I've forgotten. You still have them, but what's your?
In first grade, they have a list, and they bring it home, and they study it, and they have the test on Friday on that list of words. What we do in second grade is we have a spelling pattern that we're focusing on. This, so if it's OW or OU, whatever our pattern is, and then they have words that go with that pattern, but they do not have a list that they study and then get retested on Friday. They have the test on Friday of words that have that pattern in them, but the goal is that they internalize the pattern and can use it and not just memorize the list of words.
And just to add on to which, so Monday's homework would be brainstorm a list of words with the pattern. So you will know the pattern is OU, as in couch. And so they are to brainstorm words, and if they say cow, and you would say, yeah, you're right, that does have the ow sound. However, it's not OU, that's OW. And so with your guidance, you would brainstorm a list of 10 words on Monday that follows the pattern, and then Tuesday there's something else you do with using the words that they brainstorm. But on Friday, I'll call out a word, and if your student happened to brainstorm slouch, and I call out slouch, then they may be successful at it. But I may call out a word that they didn't brainstorm on Monday, and that's okay, because all of the words, it is a sound that they know. It's a blend, or it's a vowel team, or so they know sul, they know ow, and they know ch. And so it's going to be sounds that they would have been taught in first grade and even in kindergarten. We do bonus words. So we might do download one day. And we would have had OA at one point, and maybe this week it's OW. So we may give the word download as just a bonus word, just to give them an opportunity to see if they can apply some of the patterns that previously come.
And I will say programmatically, we talk about spelling a lot because, you know, there's a tradition in schools of spelling tests. You memorize a list of words, and guess what? Everybody gets 100 on the spelling test, and then no one spells them right in their written work.
Right.
And so really looking for this transfer of knowledge. I understand something about a word. How do I use that with something that's maybe a little less familiar and memorized?
And then also in